2024. On your screens, shots from Kisumu and also Nakuru, but it is being reported that there is a lot of chaos at Parliament here in the capital city. That is the building that is currently housing members of Parliament who are have been seated inside that building all morning, debating the amendments of the finance bill, and votes have been counted. However, outside Parliament, the scenes have been chaotic as protesters managed to access Parliament Road, and now we do have reports that they have managed to access the Parliament building. It is a dangerous situation on the ground, and we will get the very latest from our colleagues. Melita Oletenges is covering this, and Zainab Ismail, and we are getting reports of special forces shooting multiple shots and flags being pulled down, and that is what we can report at this point. And we will continue to bring you all the latest. It has been a hugely eventful day that began peacefully. However, it has descended into chaos in a number of counties where people are demonstrating, and we have witnessed scenes of violence and danger. We have updated you that a number of protesters have been injured outside Parliament as police shot live bullets. One person indeed was shot, possibly more, but we are yet to verify those facts and bring you the exact numbers. We will as and when we can. There we have NTV's Melita Oletenges outside Parliament, who in just a moment can likely update us on the difficult scenes. Behind him we can see security men on horseback as well, and protesters behind him. Melita, okay, he can't hear us at the moment. Melita, are you able to hear us?
Outside Parliament buildings, and I can report to you that Parliament is under siege. Protesters have managed to access Parliament buildings from near the Kenyatta Mausoleum. That is where they entered Parliament compound, and right after that we could hear multiple gunshots from inside the Parliament building. Earlier on we could see Parliament staff as well as leaders scampering for safety just inside Parliament, and those pictures you can see are just Parliament staff there. But as you can see on this other hand, those are protesters who have actually managed to enter the Parliament compound, and we also saw them pull down the national flag. And right there I can see a nominated member of Parliament from Baringo, Bishop Koskei there, being escorted by these protesters who are saying they come in peace, and they are marching towards the other side. This is the road that now leads behind Parliament and leads now to the chambers, and they are climbing out of Parliament now. There have been shots that have been fired multiple times from the compound. Earlier on, we saw special forces take point, and we have been able to see them also in their baklavas and masks. And I can see a protester there carrying what looks like a mace actually, but I'm not sure if it's the actual one, but it seems like he's carrying something there. But right inside Parliament, yes, I can see a protester carrying something there, which looks like a mace. Just to confirm this, it has the different, sorry, it has the different, let's just take a step back here. Approach road, and just a few moments earlier we also witnessed protesters carrying the body of one of the deceased towards the gate of Parliament. Those pictures you're seeing there are protesters now marching from Parliament. They had entered, and some of them have gotten out, and they are here now protesting and singing. They are singing that they have managed to enter Parliament building. There has been quite an arrest. This is what they were aiming at in the first place, and they have been able to access Parliament. Police have completely retreated, and as from what we are observing right outside Parliament is that protesters have managed to enter from the gate that faces the Kenyatta Mausoleum, or just next to it, and they went through a section of Parliament, brought down some flags, were marching towards the other side of Parliament, but they were actually deterred and have now come out to this other side. It has been quite a fiery exchange. Protesters hurling stones, police officers lobbing tear gas canisters, and shortly after we witnessed live ammunition, which, as I've reported, have actually claimed the lives of different or several protesters here. This is a protester carrying a flag. I reckon that is the flag of the Embu County, I think. I don't know how I got that, but he is carrying it. Protesters, a number of protesters, dozens of protesters still inside Parliament. And protesters next to me here are actually showing me live ammunition here, live bullets that they're saying they don't understand why police officers were actually shooting towards them. Unfortunate turn of events. Protesters have access, but unfortunately some of them have died in the exchange between police officers and protesters. We are right outside Parliament buildings. These are protesters showing me what is live ammunition that was used by police officers in that fiery exchange just right before they accessed Parliament. On this other side, if you can come with me, Fidel and Thiga, this is to show you just the scenes outside Parliament. Yes, police officers were just about 30 minutes ago verified, but now they are actually a bit toned down, and we can see there has been sort of a ceasefire outside Parliament, but from inside Parliament, we can actually hear gunshots, we can hear the blasts of canisters, but outside there seems like there has been sort of a calm, and tensions have actually quelled a bit, because earlier on we could see police officers trying to lob tear gas canisters here, but ceasefire, I believe. And on this other side, you can see the machinery that was being used now actually has been parked. So protesters are literally having their way here in Parliament, inside Parliament and outside Parliament. Like I said, this was their goal from the word go, occupy Parliament, and their goal has been realized at the end of the day. Water cannons parked right outside Parliament, police officers also, just standing and watching the scenes as they unfold. And those are ambulances just rushing through this Parliament Road across. I think those are the ambulances that are going to actually carry the bodies of those that have unfortunately lost their lives in this particular events this afternoon. But yes, we are outside Parliament. I can report to you that protesters from the Occupy Parliament protest against the Finance Bill 2024 have managed to access Parliament, the Parliament compound, and a few moments ago we witnessed them bring down the national flag in Parliament, and staff from inside Parliament, workers, were actually just staring as the scenes unfold, even as police officers, from what we believe are special forces, fired rounds of ammunition to try and disperse, but they were targeted at protesters, and unfortunately a number of them have lost their lives. We also saw a protester's body was brought to Parliament, where members of Parliament had gathered outside, and from a distance we can only show you that picture from a distance. That is a protester being carried by fellow protesters from the gates of Parliament into an ambulance that is waiting by. He has been draped in the very flag that was brought down from the poles of Parliament, the flags that had been hoisted outside Parliament. That is one of those flags, and the deceased is now draped in that particular flag. Protesters escorting their fallen comrade outside of this Parliament vicinity, and towards now that police lorry, an altercation there, protesters. The protesters, from what we see, are unarmed, and police officers are now sort of trying to drive off in that lorry, which is also known as Mariamu in what is the popular language amongst the youth. So, since from outside Parliament, I and my camera person, Fidel Thiga, take a quick breath. Back to you in studio, Smithy.
Melita and Fidel and all our teams on the ground, thank you so much for that update. Please do catch a breather and keep safe. You're watching NTV as we bring you these live pictures at 1:15 the hour. I am now joined by my colleague James Smart. James, absolutely incredible developments today.
Unprecedented since Smriti. From around 1400, about 2 p.m., things have been moving a bit much quicker after police ran out of tear gas and ammunition, and protesters essentially overwhelming the Parliament buildings. And these groupings, which have been from 11, beg your pardon, actually from 8 in the morning, really. Right.
I was at the office at 8, and from 8:45, that is when the chanting began and the tear gas started exploding.
Yes, and they have been streaming into the capital from 8 in the morning, making their way, building up the protests, as you are, and up to leading to this moment where Parliament has finally been breached. These groups on all streets of Nairobi. The pictures on your screen are just showing literally outside Parliament, where the protesters earlier on managed to enter Parliament. There have been reports of at least one person killed, confirmed by the Kenya Human Rights Commission, 3 others who were shot and injured. The pictures on your screen showing they're right outside Parliament again, where these running battles as police really struggling to try and maintain some sort of law and order, some sort of buffer between the protesters and the politicians who are holed up inside Parliament. Just remember that a few hours ago, members of Parliament did pass the finance bill on the committee stage, really getting the final stages of that finance bill. That has been the trigger, the catalyst that has gotten Kenyans riled up and Kenyans on the streets.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible. Hashtag Occupy Parliament. That indeed has been achieved. The police have clearly been overwhelmed and you could say overthrown, as they seem to have exited the scene, at least from what we witnessed. Reporters on the ground are actually saying that whilst protesters have been repulsed, because at one point they are approaching Parliament again. And it is also being reported that some members of Parliament have escaped to Bunge Towers through an underground channel. We will get more information on that when we can. And also we are aware that part of Parliament has been set alight. Flags have been torn down. A body of a protester was taken to Parliament and then draped in one of the flags. And Melita Oletenges also reported that 3 bodies were seen laying on Parliament Road. An absolutely tragic day.
Yes, the events there, part of Parliament has a fence that has been breached, cordoned off by the police at least earlier on. This Parliament building is sort of like a connected building, and the part where, all the legislation goes on is one part connected to another smaller part where the offices are, and then now to the Bunge Towers, which is the adjacent building that's just been built, where houses the offices of the members of parliament. They're all interconnected buildings. What has happened in the last hour or so is that members of parliament who are inside the chambers of parliament and also the grounds of parliament have managed to make their way to Bunge Towers in these sort of connected buildings. As the protesters, it became clear that the protesters were breaching the gates and the fences of parliament. But if you look at the situation outside, it looks a little calm right now. The police, obviously having been overwhelmed, have decided to sort of step back and allowing protesters to march in around Parliament. That really has taken a bit of sting out of the confrontation that we had witnessed on earlier parts of the day. Pictures on your screen that are live right now coming outside Parliament, showing protesters really walking past police and the police really allowing that to happen, because it takes the sting out of that confrontation that was there early in the day. But unprecedented scenes that protesters achieving their goal for today to actually get inside Parliament, occupy Parliament, if you like. It has come at a heavy cost, where at least one person that we know has been killed and several others injured. It is still 3:20, and protesters are still making their way around town. They are still walking around. But as Melita has informed us, that protesters are sort of disinterested with inside Parliament and sort of coming outside Parliament, having that goal being finally achieved.
Yeah, and really interesting scenes from literally a few minutes ago when there was absolute chaos outside Parliament. Protesters versus the police, tear gas rented the air, live bullets as well, protesters climbing over the fence. And now what we're seeing is a bit of a contrast. As you say, it looks almost somewhat peaceful, because what we're seeing are people actually walking at a slower pace.
Right.
We are seeing the police as well on the left of the screen and towards the center, looking relatively calm. It's almost confusing to the eye. What exactly could be happening at this point, James?
Well, one could guess that the goal has been achieved. They have made it inside Parliament, and the Occupy hashtag Occupy Parliament, if you like, has been achieved. So those pictures that are seeing there is protesters actually walking away from Parliament, presumably to other areas where there's interest around the CBD. The picture is like this, that the entire streets of Nairobi have been occupied with pockets of protesters. In one part, they would be singing and dancing. In other parts, they would be engaging, running battles with the police. In other parts, protesters just making merry and, taking pictures, taking videos, and occupying the streets, if you like. Pictures there on one side of the Parliament or the other side, where I suppose where there's a bit of action, where police are more interested in having hold fort for obvious reasons. The Mausoleum is one of it, and the Bunge Towers on the other side is one of it. But literally in front of it, adjacent to the KICC, appears to be areas that the police are really not interested in securing. Right. And protesters, this is the picture that we just saw, we saw a few minutes ago, I beg your pardon, where protesters are actually just allowed to walk. I think the whole conversation today will revolve around, obviously, the police handling of the protest today, because largely this group in the since last week, we've seen them to be peaceably walking around with phones and water and masks and hardly no violence. But today we've seen pockets of violence. We've seen stone throwing. We've seen gangs and goons who obviously had been mobilized, trying to make this today to be a bit sort of like a violent confrontation, and that has marred and spoilt what had been for the last week, by and large, a peaceful protest. And so that would have to be a conversation that would have to happen today on what exactly has happened today. Right,
although yesterday we did get the warning from the Interior Cabinet Secretary that the protesters will be dealt with ruthlessly if they break any rules of law. And one of the points he made was that buildings such as Parliament should not be accessed, and indeed that happened, and it was outside Parliament that we witnessed that bloodshed. Yes,
so the claims that will need to be verified, police using live ammunition outside, the Parliament buildings, these are, things that our teams on the ground will be able to verify, and, Kenya Human Rights Commission, among other agencies, will be able to get to the bottom of the questions of what has happened today.
Yeah, sorry, just to cut you off, James, as you're talking about what you reckon that the conversation will center around today, the other key point is, will we hear from the president, from the executive, and what does this all mean for the finance bill?
So in terms of processes, what we do know is that the committee of the whole house, which is where the bill has now moved to the third reading, has passed. That essentially gets the bill, to get in front of the president for the, ascension after the second reading and now the third reading. So in terms of processes, the finance bill was widely expected to pass. The president, on 2 occasions in the last week, has implored members of parliament to pass this bill very quickly, so that to allow the government and the programs that he has to continue running. So on one hand, that continues, that does not stop. On the second hand, I think it's the question which is coming from Sunday to this week, where the tone from the president, from the Nyahururu Church, where he appeared to take a step back and acknowledge the peaceful protest by young people, saying that he's not only proud of the young people, and he says he's ready and willing to listen and have an engagement of sort. And we saw that, with the leadership on his side of politics and side of government, taking that same route. So it will be interesting to find out what happens after the scene today. That their talking points from Sunday and Monday have not managed to remove the sting from the protesters. They still feel that more needs to be done, to be removed from the finance bill. Every law-making process is, in fact, a political process and a negotiated process. So nothing really is off the table, if you like. The president still can refuse to assent this into law. There's, 2 schools of thoughts saying this is a money bill, and the president essentially is bound by it, that he can essentially just has to sign it when it comes in front of him. That's one school of thought. There's another school of thought that suggests that this is a political process, and the president does in fact have a tool in his office that can suggest to send the bill back to Parliament and with a memorandum to tell parliamentarians that, look, this has attracted far much wide condemnation and criticism from the public than we had anticipated. Let's draft a new one. With that, the government still continues. The government continues to be funded with the finance bill of 23-24. This bill, to be clear, only introduces new set of tax for government to achieve an additional 314 billion, I believe. That is sort of has been the spark, and that I think is the conflict or the difference between where the president is and the large section of the society that feels that there's nothing further much to be taxed. 2023 had gone further enough, and 24 going farther than 23 was a bit taking things a bit too far. So that, I think, is a political conversation that must happen. But you're rightly to suggest that all eyes from 6:30 p.m. as soon as the protesters start leaving the CBD will shift to the presidency on their reaction, on how they respond to what has happened today.
Yeah, because as we said, it was unprecedented. I mean, I'm not sure that many would imagine that this is what the day would have turned out to be like. So again, on your screens there, still outside of Parliament, and it seems that people are sort of waiting and watching. James,
yes.
I suppose another interesting thing would be to watch the behavior of the protesters. What next? And might that be pegged on the response they get from the government? perhaps tonight, if at all. It would really be interesting to know their plan of action, because their mission was to occupy Parliament. They achieved that. Now what?
So by and large, we do know from their plan that they released earlier on, I think in the week, they called it the 7 days of rage.
Yes.
And Tuesday was the Occupy Parliament. And where they also cheekily said that Gen Z have offered every Kenyan off day today. So tomorrow was supposed to be a day for visiting with the comrades of those who had been killed, and that I think is Rex and David.
Right.
The protesters were killed last week, Thursday protest, and then Thursday they were going to arrange for another protest, coming back to Parliament and the CBD. So we do know up to there, this is sort of the program of what the protesters had planned for. But something has happened today. However you want to look at it, something has happened today. They've managed, those are pictures live on screen of protesters peacefully walking in front of Parliament buildings. This is right in front of the gate of Parliament. Very iconic building.
Yeah.
This is where on national days, when the president visits, an entire military guard is mounted right in front of this gate. Protesters have managed to walk past it without any sort of pushback from the police. You can see some are taking pictures, some are standing just to take in the moment. Something has happened today in that respect. And therefore, there has to be, I think, a reflection on both ends of things from the executive and the political class on what does this moment mean, that there is a section of society that is extremely angered by their actions to come to this extent. And the protesters say, well, did we achieve our goal, or do we still continue going forward from here? And what does that exactly mean? So there's a lot to pick out from here. On the pictures that you can see from your screens, this is unprecedented times. Those pictures and those videos will live to tell a story of a time and a day when Kenya changed. And that is happening right now on our screens.
And it's not only Nairobi that has witnessed pushback from both the police and also the protesters. 34 out of the 47 counties witnessed anti-finance bill protests today. That included counties as far as Turkana, Samburu, Taita Taveta, Garissa, Marsabit, of course, counties such as Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru as well, Uasin Gishu, Bungoma, Bomet, Kericho. So really, you could term this as some sort of an uprising. The youth have come together, and no doubt this was more than just about the youth. And there we're seeing on our screens people walking out of that building, and now shots from inside.
So this is inside the Bunge Towers.
Yeah.
You can see members of Parliament on there. That's a back shot there of members of Parliament and their aides trying to make out of that building. Yeah. You can imagine, and one can take in the sense of panic.
Oh, for sure.
That they would have, being trapped in that building, wanting to exit. I'm sure the many phone calls that they are receiving as well from their family, friends, and their loved ones must be very concerning. And so you can see members of Parliament trying to make their way outside Bunge Towers and essentially supposed to leave the building. On the other side of your screen, it is police patrolling the east side, I believe, of Parliament. That should provide good cover and security for the vehicles that would be leaving from the Bunge Towers and members of Parliament to exit the building, if you like. So there is a moment there that is happening of members of Parliament who are still trapped inside the Bunge complex to exit the building. On one hand, on the other side, on the west side, as you can see, protesters are still engaging. If it's a tear gas, you can still engaging.
I was about to say, you can see the smoke there, the tear gas that is renting the air. So still, a difficult and potentially dangerous situation on the ground. It may not be violent, but dangerous in terms of, tear gas canisters still being shot. We can see there at the center of the screen.
Right.
Perhaps trying to now push back. Oh, and there we go. Scenes of violence right there
That's a police officer
in front of our eyes.
You know, attacking, I think, you know,
female protesters.
Yeah, protesters. Confrontation there, right in front of Parliament buildings. This is right outside the Parliament buildings. The protesters there, you know, crying and, you know, hurt. We've seen the police, at least the policeman there, you know, hitting one of the protesters with a baton. That has been part and parcel of what has happened quite throughout the day.
And then we can see a little bit more action now,
yes.
Right? It seems like the police are trying to mobilize the protesters who are lingering around there, perhaps to a certain direction.
So the police have regrouped, coming from the side of Harambee House, and they are trying to now push back the protesters away from that side of Parliament building. On the other side is where we had shown where the Bunge Towers is.
Hey creators,
and
let's talk about the Copyright Match Tool,
sort of
a feature that helps you protect your original content and manage your copyright options. First, let's walk through how the Copyright Match Tool works. The Copyright Match Tool helps protect your content by automatically finding videos that are the same or very similar to your own, and giving you choices for what to do with them. It uses the same matching technology as Content ID, but it's easier to manage and requires fewer resources. There are 3 ways to gain access to the tool. First, if you're in the YouTube Partner Program. Second, if you've been granted access through the Copyright Management Tools application. And third, if you've removed a video through the Copyright Takedown Request form. If you're in the YouTube Partner Program or granted access through the Copyright Management Tools application, the Copyright Match Tool will scan for full re-uploads of all your videos on other YouTube channels. Generally, the tool uses the earliest upload date as a way to know which user to show matches to. So it's important you're the first one to upload the content to YouTube.
Nairobi.
Note that the tool will look for matches for all of your public, unlisted, and private videos. The Copyright Match Tool is also available to any creator who submitted a valid copyright takedown request through our web form. Once your removal request is approved, the Copyright Match Tool will start scanning YouTube uploads for potential matches. Note that in this case, the tool will specifically look only for matches of the video or videos that you submitted the takedown request for. Now let's walk through how you can review your matches and what actions you can take.
I suppose this is the restaurant inside Parliament.
Yeah, I think so, and also the canteen. I'm seeing photos from the canteen that are clear destruction right there.
Yes, this happened when protesters managed to gain entry inside Parliament in the few minutes and left, uninterested with everything else that has happened. But as we were saying, something has happened today. This has been, these pictures are not only sad, but they also capture a moment of anger that the public has and has been building on.
Right, and perhaps this, because of course the protesters had said, "We come in peace." But these are not images of peace. Having said that, their comrades have been shot.
Yes.
At least one fatally. We are just waiting for confirmation on the rest, and people have been injured. So retaliation, perhaps, and this is an example of that.
Yes, the problem with the protesting today has been that from early in the morning, and our teams have been sending, and we sent out this alert of goons, outside Ngong Road who had been mobilized on motorbikes, who were terrorizing, pedestrians and would-be protesters who are trying to make their way into the city.
So it certainly has taken a different face today compared to Thursday.
Absolutely. Yes, it's very clear that what has happened here is the infiltration, I think, between what we saw in the last 2 days of protests with this one, something has happened, and that is what has been reported throughout the day. And that contributes to this picture that we're seeing right now, where you can see destruction of property of no less than the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, the place of making laws and oversight. These pictures say something about the state of our democracy and the state of our governance today. This destruction of property that it could be breached, and that people could get there and get to do this, say something for all of us to reflect on this moment end this time.
Most definitely, because we have not seen this kind of destruction during the protests on Thursday and the previous Tuesday as well. They have been peaceful. There has been no damage of property. There has been no throwing of stones up until today, really. So as you say, something has shifted today, and this is the result. This and more deaths.
Absolutely. But we wait for maybe in an hour and a half when the protests should about end, given 6:30 p.m. according to Professor Kithure Kindiki, the Interior CS, who said that the police will not essentially allow the protest to go past 6:30 p.m. The pictures that you're seeing shows a lot of disinterest from protesters in this part of town in Parliament. Those are pictures that are showing, you know, the destruction on inside Parliament and Parliament buildings, the glasses shattered, the canteen and the tables that, you know, have been overturned, and the plates that, you know, had been, shattered as well, and broken. This is just around the Parliament and Parliament building. The issue that has to be confronted really is, how do we get out of here, really? How do we, essentially, as a country, as a nation, how do we move past this, and how do we make things go from here? The question on the finance bill from the political class and from the rules and the laws of regulation is a done deal, if you like. There's questions on what happens next to get some sort of mediation, some sort of, you know, what the Kenya Kwanza side of campaign said in their press conference last week on Monday was that they were listening to Kenyans, and since they were listening, they said, we are conceding on a few points. We'll remove the motor vehicle tax. We will
tax
remove on bread. We'll remove that, among other, you know, taxes that, you know, they had proposed. They say that has come about as a result of the listening. So the question then would beg, was that listening enough, or there's more listening that is needed? And that question then cannot be answered conclusively until after today, to see the reaction of what the Kenya Kwanza, the ruling party, really thinks of what has happened today and how they would like to address it.
All right, at this point, we can actually cross over to our colleague Fred Mutiriri, who is on the ground for us. Fred, let us know where you are at this point and what update can you give us? What's happening? We will connect to Fred Mutiriri as soon as we can, but he is on the ground along with Melita Oletenges, and also Zainab Ismail was at Parliament. We'll connect with one of them in just a moment, but just to bring you up to speed, what you're seeing on your screens again, the footage on the left is the scene outside Parliament. About 30 minutes ago, it was a completely different situation, chaos and confrontation between protesters. Injuries as well, and Parliament was occupied, part of its satellite windows smashed, and destruction as well, as you can see there on your screens from inside Parliament. Outside Parliament at the moment, the scenes do seem much calmer, but clearly, James, the air is still very tense outside Parliament.
As you can see, there's unease. There is absolutely no sort of life going on inside Parliament. Usually, if you report in Parliament, these areas are usually very bubbly. This is areas where members of Parliament would be walking in, on the right side where the canteen would be. There would be so much action happening at this place. If you know, the famous horse trading, members of Parliament have to sit and discuss. It's usually a place that is jovial with life. The pictures that you're seeing now is nothing but. The pictures that you're seeing literally outside Parliament, on that one side is perhaps, you know, more protesters, and some, I believe, would be maybe members of Parliament, you know, also trying to make their way around to their vehicles, which are stuck inside the basement on that one side. But this aerial shot, we cannot make so much of what's happening on that side. But there's obviously...
James, I'll just cut you off for a moment. Apologies. We do now have Fred Mutiriri on the line with us. So let's get a sense of what is happening on the ground. Fred, where are you? We are currently seeing pictures from within and outside of Parliament. Tell us where you are and what is happening.
Asante sana James, kwenye studio zetu hapa Nairobi. Mimi niko pande wa Uhuru Highway. Nimefika hapa Uhuru Highway, nimetembea kutoka ile barabara ya Parliament Road, nimeingia ya Harambee, kisha sasa nimesimama hapa kwenye Uhuru Highway, ambako kwa hivi sasa kile ambacho naona kando yangu ni jumba lile la jumba la wanabunge ambako wana maafisi zao, na vile vile upande mwingine ninaona bunge la kitaifa. Upande huu wangu wa kulia nikiangalia ni kwamba kumejaa maafisa wa polisi ambao wanajaribu kuwatawanya wale ambao wamekuwa kiandamana siku ya leo. Wamejaribu kufika hapa kwenye majengo haya ya bunge. Hapo awali wakaingia ndani ya jengo la bunge. Wameweza hata kula chakula kule bungeni. Zaidi ya hapo wamepata baadhi ya wabunge, lakini hawakuwajeruhi au kuwapiga, wamewasindikiza hadi nje. Hata hivyo wanajeshi wa KDF nimewaona na macho yangu mimi mwenyewe. Wanajeshi wa KDF wameweza kuingia hapa kwenye bunge la kitaifa na wakaweza kuwatawanya wale ambao walikuwa wameingia ndani na wakatoka nje. Lakini kuhuzunisha zaidi ni kwamba kuna wale ambao wamepigwa risasi. Kwa macho yangu nimeona watu ambao ni zaidi ya 5 hivi ambao wamebebwa na ambulensi na kuondoka hapa kwenye majengo haya ya bunge. Kwa sasa vijana wamekita kambi ndani ya Uhuru Park, wameingia kule ndani. Huko ndiko wanakimbizana na maafisa wa polisi hapa kule. Hapa nje ya bunge wamejaribu kuingia, wakapigwa risasi. Wamepiga risasi wabunge, sasa wanatoka nje. Kile ambacho naona hapa kwenye Harambee Avenue, nimeona wabunge wengi sana wametoka nje na wabunge wanatolewa. Wacha nikaribie sababu ninaona kana kwamba wabunge huenda wanaenda kutolewa. Ambulance zimefika hapa kwa wingi, zile za Kenya Red Cross zimeingia kwa wingi. Nikihesabu hapa karibia bunge naona zaidi ya ambulance 15 hivi ambazo ziko hapa na zinajaribu kuwaokoa wale ambao wamepigwa risasi, watu kadhaa ambao wamepigwa risasi hapa ndani ya majengo ya bunge. Ninaelezwa kwamba wabunge wamepitia chochoro za chini ambapo wabunge walikuwa wametengeneza hapa awali. Kuna njia ambayo ni mbadala na bunge la kitaifa, wamepitia chini na kuweza kutoroka baadhi yao. Kuna wale ambao tunaelezwa bado wako ndani ya afisi zao wamejifungia. Kuna wale lakini wote wametoka ndani ya majengo ya bunge. Taswira ambayo naitazama kwa hivi sasa ni kwamba maafisa ni wengi sana ambao wametumwa hapa. Inaonekana maafisa zaidi wametumwa, wale wa kukabiliana na ghasia, wale polisi wa kawaida, na zaidi ya hapo kwa hivi sasa mbele yangu naona maafisa wa jeshi. Naona maafisa kadhaa wa jeshi. Vile vile naona wabunge wanaondoka ndani ya majengo ya bunge. Maafisa wale wa Special Forces naona wameingia. Wameingia kwa hivi sasa. Magari nimehesabu kama magari 5. Maafisa wale wa Special Forces wakiwa na magari ambayo hayana nambari za usajili wameingia ndani ya majengo ya bunge. Nafikiria wanajaribu kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna mtu ambaye ataingia. Ndio wameingia ndani ya bunge, magari ambayo hayana namba za usajili, magari ambayo yamekuja na maafisa wale wa Special Forces. Kwa hivi sasa ndio wameingia bunge. Magari nikihesabu 1, 2, 3, magari 7 hivi wameingia na hawa maafisa ambao wanakuja kuhakikisha kwamba wanalinda bunge la kitaifa. Kwa sasa nikueleze kwamba nirejee hapa kwenye barabara ya Uhuru Highway. Barabara hii ya Uhuru Highway, maafisa wa polisi wameweza kuwatawanya wale ambao ni waandamanaji ambao walikuwa wamefika hapa na kuingia kwenye bunge la kitaifa. Wameweza kuondoa zile wameanza kuingia kwenye lango, wakaangusha lango lenyewe na wakaweza kuingia ndani. Kwa hivi sasa maafisa wa polisi ni wengi kupita kiasi, na nafikiria kwamba wameongezwa kupita kiasi. Kwa hivi sasa naona wale ambao ni waandamanaji wako kama kilomita 1 hivi kutoka mahali ambako nimesimama. Niko mbadala tu na bunge la kitaifa. Naona wale ambao ni waandamanaji wametawanywa, wako kule juu zaidi kwenye hoteli ambayo iko kule karibia na bunge, lakini ni mbali, kwa umbali kidogo. Kwa upande huu mwingine wa Haile Selassie hapa chini. Maafisa wa polisi kwa hivi sasa wanakabiliana na wale maandamanaji wamejaa kwenye hii barabara ya Uhuru Highway. Ikiwa una swali James Matu, mkiwa kwenye studio zetu za NTV, hebu niulizeni nitaweza kuelezea.
Mochiriri, shukran sana kwa hiyo ripoti yako. Swali ni mali upo, umeona kweli kama kuna wabunge yoyote umeweza kuwaona? Tuna habari kwamba wabunge hapo awali walijaribu kuepuka na kwenda kwa Bunge Towers.
Naam, ni kweli ni kwamba kuna wabunge ambao wote nafikiria wameweza kuondoka kwenye bunge la kitaifa pindi tu walipopiga kura. Waliondoka kwenye bunge la kitaifa. Kuna wale ambao walikuwa wamebaki ndani wakafungiwa kwenye malango na maafisa wa polisi wasiweze kuondoka, na wale waandamanaji ambao walikuwa wanajaribu kuingia wazuiliwe nje. Lakini wabunge wote naelezwa kwamba wamepitia lango la chini. Kuna barabara ambayo walitengeneza hapo awali. Ukikumbuka kama ulikuwa unapitia barabara hii ya Harambee Avenue, utakumbuka vizuri sana ni kwamba kuna njia ambayo ilikuwa inatengenezwa huku chini, wakaweza kuingia kwenye hii tawa ambapo wako. Hata hivyo naelezwa kwamba baadhi ya wabunge wameondoka. Hatujui ni kweli kama wako hapa ndani au wameondoka kwa ukweli, lakini naona wale maafisa wa Special Forces ni kana kwamba wamekuja kuhakikisha kwamba wabunge wanaondoka na wanasafirishwa, sababu wameingia na magari ambayo kidogo yanaonekana ni ya kuhakikisha wanaondoka hapa wakiwa salama salimini. Hata hivyo naona wafanyakazi wa bunge ile Bunge Towers wako bado hapa, na waona wamesimama tu nje ya milango wakitazama, wakijiuliza iwapo hawa vijana wataweza kuingia hadi hapa ndani. Na waona wamesimama kule juu ya orofa, wengine wako hapa chini, ila wanasubiria tu kuona kama maafisa wa polisi wataweza kuwatawanya. Kwa hivi sasa ni kama kwamba wamefungiwa huku ndani, hawawezi kuondoka, sababu malango yote ya bunge ambayo watu wanaweza kuingilia, haswa hapa kwenye barabara hii ya Harambee, imefungwa hapa nje, na hii ya kuingia kwenye Bunge Towers imefungwa. Kwa hivi sasa na waona magari ambayo yanapita mbele yangu. Kwa hivi sasa ningetamani sana kuona kamera nikuonyeshe. Hizi ni gari za Kenya Red Cross, Msalaba Mwekundu. Magari naona maafisa manesi ambao wanakuja kuwasaidia wale ambao wamepigwa risasi ambazo zinaondoka kwenda, na hisi kwamba kuna watu ambao wamepigwa, wakisema kuna madai kwamba kuna watu wamepigwa risasi kule karibu na barabara ya University Way, na ndipo hao Kenya Red Cross wanajaribu kuondoka wakienda kuwasaidia. Kuna wengine ambao wameteremka barabara ya Haile Selassie, nafikiria sababu kulikuwa na milio ya risasi hapo awali, nafikiria wanaenda kuwasaidia spasi.
Well, pictures on your screen there showing inside Parliament, you know, the costs and the breakages and what has been left after protesters really breached the Parliament building there on the left side of your screen. On the right side of the screen is sort of like running battles, the police trying to make a way there, while the protesters are still holding up, you know, their line, but moving back. Still some running battles, police there. There's a police vehicle thing trying to exit that scene around Parliament. Our reporter there, Mochiriri, bringing us a sense of what has happened in the last hour or so, watching the breaching of the parliament fence, with what has happened inside. And it just informs us in the last minutes that the special forces and members of the military had to get involved to secure the members of parliament for them to make way outside Bunge Towers, Smriti.
Right, and of course they did manage to escape to Bunge Towers through that underground channel as those protesters entered Parliament building. Melita Oletenges is still on the ground. Melita, where are you? And we've just spoken with Fred Mutiriri, and we've also been seeing pictures from within and outside Parliament. When I last spoke to you this afternoon, the scenes were absolutely chaotic outside Parliament. At some point, it seemed like things were simmering down, but what is happening where you are?
Well, Smriti, what you're looking at is the aftermath of what has been a siege in the Parliament compounds and Parliament buildings at large for the past about an hour. And the destruction we have witnessed here is, as you can see there, destruction from gates, fences that have been brought down by protesters. This is actually where they managed to get access to the Parliament compound from. Now, just to picture. This is just the entrance to the Jomo Kenyatta Mausoleum, which is just a few meters from what used to be hotel. Now, they managed to actually jump over the fence from the road outside Intercontinental Hotel, and then they entered the Parliament compound. And what you can see there is the remains of what has been the siege. The fences have been brought down, but we can see special forces are actually keeping tight in the compound. We have been trying to get access, but we have been denied. But be as it may, we'll show you the destruction out here. Those are the gates that I was talking about earlier when we spoke on phone. And the gates and the fences. But if Fidel can just show you on my right side is the aftermath of that truck that was raised down by protesters. Now, this is to show you, Smitty, that protesters had advanced beyond this point. When you see a lorry has been raised down, it means they had actually swept through this area, and they were about Parliament, and then now they jumped over the fence and accessed the Parliament buildings. Now, the destruction that we have witnessed here. This is also a gate, as you can see, a very modern gate here that is used by members of Parliament. Windows have also been shattered, windows, and a certain wing of Parliament has been completely raised down by protesters. If Fidel can just zoom in, you can see yonder, just some few meters from where we are standing. That is a wing of Parliament buildings that has been raised down by protesters, and the Inferno has been put out just a few minutes ago, as well as the Inferno that was still raising the truck that we've just shown you. As you can see those pictures, you'll notice that there are police officers in civilian, and we have special forces who are donning a brown and blue fatigue, military fatigue, mainly worn by the special forces. We can see also a helicopter is hovering above us here in buildings. Now, inside Parliament, which we will just show you in a few minutes to come, is that the protesters gained access to the Senate chambers just moments after they brought down the national flags outside the gate that leads to Parliament. They brought down all through that section of including tablets and also material that they could put their hands on. They have been able to carry television sets. We saw a number of them as very punitive, and they say oppressing them further even when they feel their backs are, and the police are pressing them even further towards town, and that is what has been happening. We have had live ammunition consistently. Even when it stopped, it only stopped for a few minutes, but the police would then continue. And a few moments ago, rather, I've seen special forces stepping out of Parliament. We'll restrict ourselves from that side. Fidel, if we can just go back this way, just to paint a picture of Parliament Road. Now, walk with me. This is Parliament Road. As you can see, debris here from barricades that are used to mark footpaths in different parts of the city. A litter bin here, a litter bin here. And you can see this is the pole of City Hall Way. Also here, a number of barricades are just lying down here. Parliament Road is dotted with havoc, and if I may say, now police officers have stand down because this is the water cannon. They are not using that anymore. Smitty, this is where protesters were gunned down as they marched towards Parliament before other protesters gained access from the other side. The bodies have now been removed. We counted about 4 bodies lying here on Parliament Road, and police officers are still, staying here, staying put to ensure that the protesters don't go back. You can see someone there has been injured, a police officer also trying to get medical attention from medics. Now, this is what the message has been from protesters of the Occupy Parliament. And you can see there, what do you call this? This is like boards. They have built a monument of sorts just opposing the Finance Bill 2024. And the messages are clearly written there. Total shutdown, Occupy Parliament. Police officers are trying to carry this away. As you can see there, just trying to push the whole thing aside. This is where we are at with this coverage. Smriti, there has been lots of activity following the aftermath of that access by protesters into Parliament buildings. And when they accessed Parliament buildings, Smriti, we could actually see from the outside, we could see workers or other staff who work in Parliament. They were rather shaken by what was happening. Some of them were running for their lives. Some of them just stood put, just looking in awe of what was happening, because this seemed like wouldn't happen, but this has actually happened. And from reports on the ground, including inside the chambers, is that the protesters have not left anything unturned. We are making our way towards the Parliament entrance, hoping that we will get inside. But as you can see now, this there has been a sort of calm that has been restored on this part. But earlier on, it was havoc, and protesters were actually walking down this road from Parliament. And earlier on, actually, we witnessed the protesters also escorting, I think, nominated Senator Bishop Koskei from Baringo. And they were actually escorting him, I think, from the chambers, walking towards the Parliament canteen, but unfortunately they were stopped in their tracks there, and the MP actually had to go inside by himself. So you can see water cannons are parked by the roadside here on Parliament Road, and police officers who were trying to resist the protesters from different sides of this Parliament buildings have actually stood down. There's a bit relaxation here from the pictures you are looking at. We are walking towards Parliament, the entrance to Parliament. So stay with us as we hope to show you the pictures inside and the aftermath after that raid by protesters inside Parliament. Now, Smriti, as I reported earlier, we had protesters walking up to us with rounds of ammunition that were cartridges that had been fired by police officers. And as I have mentioned, we have witnessed bodies outside Parliament, that is on Parliament Road, that have been taken away by police officers and ambulance. Now, we'll try to see whether we can access the building now. We have been trying to access. This is what we've faced for a couple of times now. We're just trying to show you what is happening inside Parliament buildings. But as you can see, the gates here are actually being locked by the security apparatus here. But this is what we have been trying for the last couple of minutes, last couple of moments that we've been trying to come here. But let's just go to the other side together with my camera person, Fidel. Now, there were vehicles that were earlier parked outside on this parking, but now they were moved very fast inside the parking that is at the basement of Parliament. Now, this is what we are looking at from this part, but we are keen to see whether members of parliament are still holed up inside or they are outside, because we understand that security has been bolstered immediately after we witnessed that fracas here. Then we witnessed some members of parliament come out, but we also witnessed some members of parliament run in to hide from the protesters who are angry with the finance bill, angry with the president, a generation that is saying our voice must be heard, a generation that is saying despite our age, despite how few we may be, our voice must be heard, and a generation that has also put other generations before that to task, who have come out now to voice also their concerns in regards to mistreatment of the protesters by police officers. Now, Smitty, as we try to gain access to Parliament, please allow me to take it back to you, hand it back to you in studio for a bit as we catch a breath, Smitty.
Well, that's from Parliament, giving us a sense of what's happening, a good picture of the breakages and the breaches that has happened on the fence of Parliament and right inside Parliament. We've seen police vehicles that have been mobilized, halfly torched right outside Parliament. On the other side, we have seen, as you can see, medics there trying really to help those who are injured. You know, right in the precinct of just around Parliament. A lot of action there of medics really trying to help those who've been injured. A gentleman there is lying, you know, on his back. Medic trying to really to ascertain and assess how he can be helped and trying to diagnose where really he has been injured. A lot has happened this afternoon, right from 1300 hours, where protesters overwhelmed the police, you know, inside the CBD, and managed around 1500 to breach Parliament, where they have gone and attempted, you know, to occupy Parliament, if you like. That appears to have been done, and, you know, cases, at least dealing with one case of one person that has been confirmed killed by the Kenya Human Rights Commission, several others injured. Those numbers will be confirmed, and we, our team on the ground, plus all the agencies, will be able to give you a true cost of numbers of what has happened today. But something has changed today. As you can see from the shots on your screen right now, that protesters on that side of Parliament appear still to be engaging with the police, a handful, if you like, appear still to be engaging the police on the other side. On one side, on the other side of your screen, things are a bit calm, but that, you know, doesn't tell the true picture and the whole picture of what has happened throughout the day. There have been injuries, there has been a reported death, and there's been a breaching of Parliament, unprecedented, on this June 25th, 2024. All this started on the question of rejecting the Finance Bill 2024, and that has brought us here, really, where, you know, the section of the public started organizing and agonizing over this question of Finance Bill 2024. And the question had been how the political class and the Kenya Kwanza administration would take the responses. It has gotten here. We do, from this afternoon also inside Parliament, Parliament did pass through the committee stage, the final stage of the bill, Finance 2024, which now will go to the final reading to be assented by the President, passed early this afternoon, just right before the protesters managed to breach Parliament. Pictures on your screen there showing you the protests and on one end who was still a pocket of it, if you like, trying to, you know, still engage police. On the left side of your screen, inside the Holy Family Basilica, is where that had been one of the places where the medics, you know, have been attending to those injured. The numbers have been many, they've been numerous, they've been dozens who've been injured. We're getting reports all through different spots where the medics, you know, had planted their tents many who were injured. We've seen right on our screens, many protesters who were not only injured, getting medical help, getting medical attention live on television. Unprecedented day. What a day to take in. Is still 10 minutes past 4. One would imagine that it's getting late because a lot has happened between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. That would need to be taken stock of. But our reporters on the ground, Melita Oletenges, Frederick Mutiriri on one hand, and the rest have been keeping us up to speed and up to date, giving us details, letting us know the scenarios, painting a picture of us for us on the happenings in and around the CBD, the running battles that started arguably like 8 in the morning and up to now, really counting the costs of what has happened right outside, accident emergency here. As we see more protesters, being taken in to get more medical attention.
And our reporter Helen Aura is at the Kenyatta National Hospital. She can join us now. Helen, what are you witnessing? We are aware that there have been a significant number of injuries and also some fatalities today. All right, we'll connect with Helen in a moment, but what you're seeing on the left of your screen is City Hall, and a fire is currently erupting within City Hall. We'll get more information as we can. That is the office of the governor of the county of Nairobi. Some youth there seated outside City Hall, but now making their way away. And on the left window, you can damage there, and the fire is still ablaze on the ground floor, and a police vehicle has just arrived to tend to this situation. So some seriously chaotic scenes in the county of Nairobi, particularly
Absolutely.
in the central business district. James.
Absolutely. Not ideal, but the police there, the powers there is trying to use its water canister there to put off the fire that is at this is at the county office, the Nairobi, where the governor of Nairobi actually does sit. We're not we don't know the source of the fire and what caused this fire, but we've seen part of the protest once the protesters with furniture from the county office. Quite a chaotic day, quite a day of destruction. We've seen these pictures that obviously tell us something about the state of affairs, the state of Kenya's democracy, the state of Kenya's governance. These pictures right on your screen now show us where we are. It all started with rejecting the Finance Bill 2024, and as one has correctly put in context, that should not have been a death sentence, shouldn't have been a question of destruction of Parliament or the County Hall office. That will have to be taken to stock. Absolutely clear that something is broken, something has shifted, and something has changed in the Kenyan political sphere.
That's right, and the people have clearly spoken through their actions, James. Now we await to hear from the executive, which perhaps we will later this evening, but I am told now that we can listen in to Helen Aura, who is at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Helen will update us on what's happening.
That we have also been able to see on the streets from the police officers firing live rounds at these young people who actually were not even armed. Though in certain areas of CBD today we saw that the roads were blocked, but they managed to disperse the crowds well within their means. But James, we will be able to give you more information. Kenyatta National Hospital, as you can see, it's well staffed. The beds are all out here. Once a patient goes in, then they're able to assess at the triage center to be able to assess also
Helen Naura there, reporting right outside the Kenyatta National Hospital. As you've seen, the medics ready outside the accident emergency to receive those injured from Nairobi to arrive there any minute now. As she has informed us, the doctors are ready, the beds are out to receive, to triage, and to quickly make that line moving. Presumably there's quite a heavy number of those injured coming right up by the preparations that we've seen right there on the screen. Earlier on, pictures of the county office of Nairobi, where it is on fire, parts of it at least, and the police there, trying to, douse off the last one of the offices. We'll have our eyes on the ground there to tell you the latest of what's happening, how that fire started, and if eventually it stops. On the other side, in Parliament, things appear to be calm now after protesters did breach Parliament like an hour ago, about an hour and 15 minutes ago, where that breach must have happened. And
that is, of course, not the only fire that we are witnessing today, James. Earlier, a police vehicle, a truck, was set alight just outside Parliament. And also we have seen cars being set alight in different parts of the country, as well as protesters voiced their displeasure at the situation with regard to the finance bill.
Yes, there's conversations, on what happens next. We do know that the president was in Naivasha earlier today, and we do understand that he arrived a few minutes ago back into the capital city. We are ears on the ground to hear if the head of state will address the nation or will send a statement. We are on the lookout for that. But there's quite, a conversation of what happens next, even as we see these last pictures of medics trying to get and help those who have been injured and transport them to Kenyatta National Hospital, among other efforts to sort of, help those who have been injured, save lives, as you can see the pictures on your screens right now.
Right, and if indeed we do hear from the president, what will be interesting is the content of his statement. We still have not heard from the executive or the Ministry of Interior regarding the deaths that were witnessed last week and the police brutality as well. Today we are aware that there have been fatalities, so we will wait and see whether or not the president will allude to those, and also what the way forward will be. But just look at that damage and destruction. If it's not a vehicle, it is a building. If it is not a building, it is furniture, and of course human life as well has been affected. As you keep saying, James, unprecedented. I think nobody could have imagined that we would be witnessing what we have witnessed today in Kenya. It is an historic day for democracy, for the people of Kenya, young and old. I mean, look at that. Even in the county of Mombasa, young people coming out to demonstrate. And then there you go on the right, a moment of utter emotion.
Right.
Which I'm sure a number of people are feeling across the country. It is a trying time for Kenyans at large, whether people are witnessing this on TV or whether they're hearing about it, whether they are on the ground themselves, or whether they are part of the protesters or part of the support team, as we're seeing. And this news, of course, has made it across the world. People are watching, all eyes on Kenya.
Absolutely, Smriti. There's something with what has happened today with the breaching of Parliament. Remember, this is a House of Representatives. It is the place for accountability. It is where members of Parliament go to make our laws. And in many ways, not just, it's a seat that gives the Kenyan people a voice. And there's something symbolic with what we've seen, the pictures we've seen of that house being destroyed. It's very symbolic. It's an analogy of people saying that they don't think that house has been serving them and does serve them. So there's a lot of reflection on those images. Over and above, the personal, injuries, the deaths that have been reported. There's something that says the Kenyan democracy is in a problem. The Kenyan governance needs to recheck itself, that perhaps the people, those who are governed vis-a-vis those who are governing, are speaking from two different scripts. Yeah. Nothing demonstrates that than what we are seeing. This on your screen right now. Across the country, 34 counties out of 47 have participated in this protest today. By and large, most has been peaceful. Nairobi has the one that has turned violent in certain parts, with deaths reported and injuries. That tells you something, and that's the taking stock that needs to happen fairly quickly after this. That something has to give. Someone has to sit down and converge the nation. The person with the power to converge the nation and call the nation to to order and say, either I've listened to you. What is being said is perhaps correct, or you might have misread it, and this is how I choose to move it forward. That would be something that would need to happen fairly soon, this evening if possible, right. And nothing further than that, would manage to sort of remove the sense of fear and in the air. Pictures right now of on your screen in Mombasa. Our reporter there earlier on told us it was peaceful. We can see still peaceful, as you can imagine, the protesters, they're also receiving news of what has happened in Nairobi, and you can see the sense of shock, in everyone's eyes, yeah. Of that news that has traveled, Smriti, as you say, not only just, internationally, but inside the country,
right,
of what this moment means.
Occupy Parliament has been achieved. It really has been an intense day, James. It is now approaching 4:30 in the afternoon.
It feels like midnight.
It does.
It does feel like midnight.
The energy is absolutely immense, and the determination to prove a point.
So I think two things. I think if we are to sort of look at, we've done this many times, me and you before, and if you look at, say the 2010 Constitution, which is perhaps one of, the most engaging moment that this country had in the voting of this sort of new constitution, and sort of promised this new birth of a new country. Participating in that and covering that was something immense. You could see the energy, you could see the liveliness of people. The hope that people had, that we are doing something, we're bringing something fresh, something new,